The Lockheed AC-130 gunship has become America's premier platform for profoundly pugnacious fire support against petulantly perverse and problematically pious insurgent forces in the Middle East. It is a widely known aircraft thanks to its long list of appearances in popular media.
That AC-130 is entering your airspace at this time. Out.
But some lesser-known facts about the AC-130 may shock you, though it has become a symbol of American firepower in the 21st century. The AC-130 is much older than it looks and has a historic combat record dating all the way back to the 1960s. So strap in as we take a closer look at the legendary gunship and uncover what has made it such an effective option for close air support in America's military. Before we do, consider leaving a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more entertaining and informative videos about military vehicles throughout history. Vietnam in the 1960s, home to some of the most brutal combat operations of the modern age. The unfamiliar and unforgiving landscape combined with an intelligent enemy that used the terrain to their advantage made on-the-ground American troops operate less effectively than in previous wars. Luckily, advancements in things like helicopters and fighter jets made on-demand air support a progressively plausible option for troops that found themselves in precarious predicaments. Helicopters were known for terrorizing the enemy in Vietnam, and fast-flying attack planes that could literally rain fire from the sky caused absolute havoc on the battlefield. But these options were not always right for the job. The short flight time and small ammunition capacity of these smaller crafts caused issues for troops embarking on extended patrols or special operation teams conducting raids deep behind enemy lines. It was clear that there needed to be some form of aircraft that had a much longer operational window and could stay in the air for hours on end in order to be at the ready for the ground forces that came under enemy fire. The Douglas AC-47 Spooky gunship attempted to fill this role, but left something to be desired in terms of firepower and longevity. Thus, the Air Force looked at their trusty C-130 transport craft and patriotically proclaimed that they would be adding guns to it. One C-130 was flown to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, where it underwent some pretty extreme modifications. A night vision telescope was added to the forward door, and an infrared camera was placed in the left wheel well. Miniguns and rotary cannons were installed along the left side of the plane, and a fire control computer was installed to operate all of the deadly weapon systems. The Air Force gazed upon their positively pioneering creation and called it the AC-130. After just a few months of testing, the aircraft was declared ready for action in September of 1967. A fun fact is that the AC-119 Shadow gunship was also introduced around this time, but it proved to be far less effective than the AC-130 and was phased out by 1972. It didn't take long for the AC-130 to develop a terrifying reputation. After first being deployed in combat operations over Laos and southern Vietnam, AC-130s played a critical role in the support against the Tet Offensive in June of 1968. That same year, Special Forces ground commanders began demanding AC-130 support in defending critical forward operating bases. Each AC-130 would usually fly with an escort of 3 F-4 Phantom fighters that would help shield the craft from anti-air fire. Despite this protective measure, the first AC-130 was lost in May of 1969, much to the pitiable pleas of American forces. Later in that year, the first upgrades were given to the AC-130. Laser designators, video recorders, internal navigation systems, and a prototype digital fire control computer were all installed into newly produced AC-130s. In 1972, the devastating 105mm howitzer gun was installed onto AC-130s, giving the gunship the ability to flatten entire buildings and transform the battlefield in a quite literal fashion. The AC-130 continued to be one of the most important tools for controlling the tide of battle for special operation fire teams throughout the entire Vietnam War. In total, 6 AC-130s were shot down during service in Vietnam, mostly by 37mm anti-aircraft artillery. The AC-130 served in the Vietnam War up to and including the 1975 final evacuation of Saigon. By the end of the war, the AC-130 had become the only operable gunship in the entire Air Force. The pristine and potent potential of the gunship caused military commanders to ponder more possible implementations of the craft. During the Iranian hostage crisis, some strategists proposed using an AC-130 to conduct retaliatory strikes deep within Iran. AC-130s were also used in the 1989 invasion of Panama. as well as the Gulf War in the early 90s. During the Gulf War, one AC-130 with call sign Spirit 03 was shot down by a lone Iraqi with a Strela 2 shoulder-mounted anti-air missile launcher, tragically killing all 14 crew members. An interesting fact is that this incident led to the development of directional infrared countermeasures, which overload heat-seeking missiles by pointing an infrared laser at incoming missiles that jam its tracking systems. This system is now commonplace on most large American aircraft. This brings us to the version of the AC-130 we see today that served during most of the global war on terror. The current model requires a crew of 7 airmen with 2 pilots, 2 combat systems officers, and 3 special mission aviators. The length of the gunship is about 97 feet, or 8.82 Peruvian yellow-legged centipedes. The wingspan is an astonishing 132 feet, and the height is about 28 feet. Being a transport craft by nature, the AC-130 has a carrying capacity of over 155,000 pounds. 4 Allison T56 engines power most AC-130s that each put out over 4,000 shaft horsepower. The AC-130 is not the fastest craft in the sky, with a top speed of about 416 miles per hour. The AC-130's strengths lie more in its raw fire capacity, as well as the height that it operates from. The AC-130 can rain down fire from up to 39,000 feet, almost twice as high as the flight ceiling for an attack helicopter like an Apache Longbow. This means an AC-130 can oftentimes be a safer option for providing close air support. The weaponry that can be employed on an AC-130 is a long enough list to justify its own video. There are several retired and active duty variants of the AC-130 that all have different armaments for different mission sets. Older variants of the AC-130 include the Spectre, the Spooky, and the Stinger. The Ghost Rider is the currently operated variant, which carries one 30mm autocannon, one 105mm howitzer, a set of guided missiles, small diameter bombs, and even Hellfire missiles. The AC-130 has been well known and well appreciated since its conception, but it really came into the public spotlight during the global war on terror. During the early days of the invasion of Afghanistan, Special Forces teams used AC-130s to pound and pulverize the positively precarious positions of Taliban fighters. The Taliban would try to use the mountainous terrain to hide from ground forces, but they were easily spotted by the infrared sightings of the AC-130. Many even credit the AC-130 as being the deciding factor in the first real battle of Afghanistan near the city of Kunduz, in which the Taliban surrendered to American forces in a single day. The 16th Special Operations Squadron has flown AC-130s over Mazar-e-Sharif, Kunduz, Kandahar, Bagram, and virtually every conceivable region of Afghanistan. During the famous Operation Anaconda in 2002, 3 AC-130s fired over 1,300 40mm rounds and 1,200 105mm howitzer rounds. During combat operations in Iraq, at least one AC-130 was in the air at all times for on-demand air support requests. AC-130s provided fire support in key locations like Fallujah and other crowded urban environments. The AC-130 was indeed vital to the success of the American military in these battles, although it should also be noted that the use of the gunship in such locations that were known to have large populations of non-combatants was criticized by human rights groups. AC-130s also took part in special operation raids against al-Qaeda militants in Somalia and during Operation Odyssey Dawn in Libya. The final Spectre model was retired in 2015. As of now, there are 30 Ghost Rider models currently in service by the Air Force. In addition to being preposterously powerful, the Ghost Rider is also lighter and more fuel efficient than previous models. The most recent use of the Ghost Rider in a combat setting took place in November of 2023, when a strike was performed on an Iranian-backed militia group centered in Iraq after the militia launched a ballistic missile against Al-Assad Air Base. As of now, the United States is the only country to operate the AC-130 due to several reasons. One of the most simple reasons is that a single AC-130 costs about $165 million, a price tag that is simply not practical for countries with smaller defense budgets. The raw cost of the AC-130 is only the tip of the iceberg, however. The AC-130 requires certain conditions in order to operate effectively. A position of absolute air superiority must be kept in areas that the AC-130 operates. The AC-130 is not particularly fast and is not the most nimble nimble as one could tell by simply looking at the proportionally portly aircraft, meaning it is very vulnerable to anti-aircraft fire as seen in the Vietnam War. The AC-130 requires a lot of support from escort fighters and ground forces to ensure that it can circle the battlefield from a position of safety. But beyond this, the U.S. military has consistently chosen to forbid the sale of AC-130s to any foreign customers, even its closest allies. Nevertheless, Russia is currently developing its own gunship that would be similar to the AC-130. In 2019, it was announced that a close air support variant of the AN-12 cargo plane was in development that took many notes from the American AC-130. However, it was announced in 2021 that the AN-12 would not be the platform for the Russian gunship, and Russian aerospace engineers had to go back to the drawing board. The AC-130 has provided fire support for American special operators for nearly 60 years. It has operated effectively in lower technology environments like Afghanistan, but strategists have expressed concern that the legendary gunship could become an unpopular and unpropitious option in future conflicts in non-permissive environments. The Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments has suggested an investment in more advanced projects that have lower heat signatures and higher speeds to fill the role of the AC-130. Some have proposed upgrading the AC-130 in order to meet the needs of America's ever-changing missions. This could include equipping the gunship with cruise missiles, more advanced radar systems, and replacing the howitzer cannon with a more precise launch-range bombing system. Though the future for the AC-130 may be a bit unclear, it will always have a long service record to place it in the Hall of Fame for American military craft. It can be said without a shadow of a doubt that a great many of American victories from Vietnam to Afghanistan and Iraq can be attributed directly to the AC-130.